Hey friends, welcome back to Sunday School here at First United Methodist Church. We are so glad that all of you are joining us this morning for Sunday School. We're reading a really cool story about a guy who had a name change and an attitude change. The story is in the book of Acts, chapter 9, beginning with verse 1. And it's called Saul to Paul in your Spark Story Bible. Cool fact, we say it every Sunday, almost every Sunday, the New Testament, 27 books. Well, of that 27, 13 were written by this one guy, Paul. And he has this amazing story of being converted into the faith. He didn't believe in Jesus, and then he met Jesus, and all of a sudden he believed. We're going to read his story out of the Spark Story Bible, but I hope you, if you have one of these adventure Bibles, take a moment to look it up in there too. It talks about the power to change. Saul hated Christians, it says. He was mean to them and he arrested as many as they could. And then Saul met Jesus and Saul was changed. He even got a new name. Only God has the power to change like that. So let's listen to the story and find out more about God's power to change, even us. Saul was a bully. He hated anyone who was a Christian. Saul wanted all Christians thrown in jail. But God had other plans for Saul. Even though Saul was a mean person, God loved him and had a big surprise for him. Saul had been ordered to go to Damascus. He smiled slyly to himself. If any Christians lived in Damascus, he would find them. He would arrest them and bring them to Jerusalem. Saul smiled confidently. He had arrested Christians 100 times before, and he could do it again. Suddenly, swirls of dust blew up from the road. Saul covered his eyes with his arms. "Storm's coming up," he shouted to his men. Crash. Flash, kabash, Saul fell to the ground. A blinding light exploded around him and a strong voice spoke to him. "Saul, Saul, why do you hurt me?" Saul rubbed his eyes. He couldn't see anyone. "Who are you?" Saul stuttered. "I am Jesus," the voice said. "I am not dead. I am very much alive, and I have plans for you. Go into town and wait." Saul and his men were speechless. They could hear the voice, but they couldn't see anyone. Saul waved his hand in front of his face. "My eyes! I can't see! Someone help me get up," Saul ordered. Because he could not see, Saul's men led him by hand into Damascus. There Saul waited and prayed. He wasn't mean or bad anymore. God had touched Saul's heart. A man named Ananias was in Damascus. Ananias loved Jesus. God told Ananias to go to Saul and pray so that he might see again. "But Lord," Ananias said, "Saul is a mean man and I'm afraid of him." God said to Ananias, "I have chosen Saul to bring my story to many people. I have a plan for him." Ananias found Saul just as God had said. Ananias prayed for Saul and Saul was filled with God's Holy Spirit. Suddenly Saul could see again. Ananias told Saul that God had a job for him. Saul was to tell people about Jesus. Saul was baptized and his name was changed to Paul. And Paul served God for the rest of his life. He became a friend of Jesus and told many people about how Jesus changed his heart. See, that's the power to change. Saul goes from hating Christians to becoming a Christian. When we invite Jesus to live in our hearts, he has the power to change us and to make us into disciples, into followers of him. This story is about Saul and his transformation to Paul, but there's another character in this story who has a really big faith that can teach us something, and that guy is Ananias. He was scared. He didn't want to go see Saul. God told him, "Go help this guy," but he says to the Lord, "Saul's a mean man and I'm afraid of him." God tells him to go anyway, and even though he's afraid, Ananias ultimately listens to what God asks him to do, and God goes with him and breathes the Holy Spirit into Saul through him. Imagine if Ananias had let his fear stop him from serving Saul. Sometimes God calls us to step out of our comfort zones and to reach out to others. And it's one of the things I love about Project Morehead City, Project Many Hands for Christ, Project MHC, that we just got done doing with our youth ministry kids. They got to step out of their comfort zone and do things that they had never done before and serve God, even though for some of them it was kind of scary to be away from home for that long and to be in places, even though they're close to home, that they had never been before. I wonder what God is calling each of you to do this week, and I wonder if you'll have the courage to follow him. Hope you guys have a great week, and I will talk to you next week. Bye, friends.
I feel it in the air right now. It's all around, I see it everywhere. It's the power, yeah, God's power. It's the power to move any star. It's the power to heal your broken heart. It's the power, yeah, God's power. So don't hold back, no, don't hold still. God is here and he is real. Take 4 steps to the left, to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn it around and move to the right. 1, 2, 3. Now take tiny little jumps forward to the front. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 jumps back, but you better look back. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now freeze. And everybody clap your hands. Now stop. I feel it in the air right now. It's all around, I see it everywhere. It's the power, yeah, God's power. It's the power to move any star. It's the power to heal your broken heart. It's the power, yeah, God's power. So don't hold back, no, don't hold still. God is here and he is real. Take 4 steps to the left, to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn it around and move to the right. 1, 2, 3. Now take tiny little jumps forward to the front. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 jumps back, but you better look back. Let's do it all again right now. Take 4 steps to the left, to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn it around and move to the right. 1, 2, 3. Now take tiny little jumps forward to the front. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 jumps back, but you better look back. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now freeze. And everybody clap